If you want to study abroad but not sure which country is best for you, today I'm going to compare UK versus Australia. So I will be comparing 15 parameters so that you can make your decision accordingly. And again, I'm not doing this video alone. I have a special guest, Victor, who is going to talk about the Australia bit, and I'm going to talk about the UK. If this topic is of any use to you, make sure to watch the video till the end. And without any further delay, let me introduce you guys to Victor. Hi, Victor. Welcome to Your Knowledge Buddy once again. And if you don't mind, can you give a brief introduction about yourself to my audience?
Thank you very much, Sarika, for this platform. And guys, my name is Pushpak Ghai, nickname is Victor, and I'm a migration agent for Australia. And in this video, I'll be discussing with all the background and experience, life experiences, and more than 20 years of experience to share with you.
Thank you. So let's start the comparison game. So my first comparison is about the tuition fee, because the students are worried how much will they pay when they move to any country, whether it's UK or Australia. So for UK, if you're coming here for bachelor's, your bachelor's is for 3 years and your master's is for 1 year. And generally for per year, so if you are coming for bachelor's per semester per year, you need to pay approx 10 to 15,000 pound, which is roughly equals to 10 lakh in Indian rupees, 10 to 15 lakh Indian rupees. So if you're coming for masters, your masters can be of from 10 to 15 lakhs on an average. What about Australia?
So, Sarika, for Australia, bachelor's degree is the same for 3 years, but for master's, there is a condition. If you want to be eligible for a post-study work visa, you have to study for at least 92 weeks. So most of the students, they generally choose 104. It means 104 weeks of study in Australia, which is for 2 years. And average fees in Australia for 1 year of education is between $28,000 to $34,000, and each dollar in Australian dollar is around 54 rupees. So yeah, this is where UK can be a little bit cheaper because of the duration of the study.
Moving to the next one, which is about the living cost. So speaking to a lot of students in the UK, the living cost really depends on how you live, whether you're living with your friends or with your families, with your partner. So on an average, if you are a student coming alone, you spend somewhere around £700 to even £1,300 per month, depending where you're living. So which is equal to roughly 70,000 in Indian rupees to 1.3 lakhs Indian rupees. What about Australia?
Australia is also very similar. It's around $21,000 for 1 year, approximately. And on an average, people spend approximately $1,500 to $2,200, $1,500 to $2,200 every month.
Okay, let's move to the next one, which is about post-study work permit. So if you are coming to UK for bachelor's or master's, you will be allowed 2 years of post-study work permit. And if you're doing your PhD, you are allowed 3 years of PhD. What about Australia?
So for Australia, Sarika, generally students get 485 subclass of visa, which is post-study work visa for 18 months. But there is a stream. It means if you are doing some courses which are in high shortage or high demand in Australia, for those you can get, for a bachelor's degree, you can get up to 4 years. For a master's degree, up to 5 years. And for a PhD, you can get up to 6 years of post-study work visa.
Australia is winning here. So let's move to the next one, which is about how easy is it to get a permanent residency. So in the UK, currently the market is tough. So getting job or getting visa sponsorship is not that easy unless until you have some niche and you have some experience in your particular field. However, UK is following point-based system, which means if you happen to find a job offer from a licensed sponsor, and if you get COS, which is called Certificate of Sponsorship, you can get your PR within 5 years. What about Australia?
So for Australia, we also follow a point-based system, but there are various streams available for students, and we do have regional migration policies as well. So if a student coming for the for the programs which are in high demand, they can apply for independent visa 189 subclass. But there are other visas if they are coming for a general program like a business program or marketing or tourism or hospitality related studies, they can apply for a state nomination visa. And if they already have a job offer, they can apply for visas with the support of their employers. So I would say in Australia, if someone is coming to study, there are variety of options available for them to explore the pathway to residency.
So in the UK, you don't have too many options, guys. So I think Australia is better again. Okay, now let's move very quickly to the next one, which is weather. It may be important to few of the students and maybe not important to everyone. So just touching upon the weather, UK is a cold country and the extreme weather goes around -5, especially in the north, like Scotland area. However, the remaining time, you get a good summer of 4 months and otherwise it is little cold. What about Australia?
So, Sarika, for Australia, most of the students, they come for the country, or like for the cities like Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, and Brisbane, and Adelaide. So most of the students come towards this side, leaving Darwin or Cairns or Tasmania away. So there are less number of students. Number of students go to those places, remote areas.
Mhm.
So I would say Australia is a desert. Basically, it's a very dry country, and some months in winter they get really cold, and but still it's not something like in Melbourne you won't see snowfall happening. So it's quite moderate and understandable or bearable, I would say. So very moderate temperature, I would say. It's like only 4 months in the whole year you will find extreme hot or extreme cold.
Now moving to the next parameter, which is about which jobs are in demand. So in the UK, if your job falls under the shortage occupation list, like medical, healthcare, engineer, IT, construction work, you will be in huge demand. What about Australia?
Sarika, Australia, definitely engineering and medical, these fields are always in demand. But another field which is very emerging and very much in high demand for Australia, because Australia attracts a lot of tourists, as well as because it is a huge country, it is geographically totally different from the UK. So it's really huge, and transporting and mining is a very big sector, and forestry is also a very big sector in Australia.
So guys, please make a note of it. If you fall under one of these categories, I think Australia will be better option for you as compared to the UK. Now, moving to the next one, which is about how many hours students are allowed to work part-time. Starting with UK, in the UK, you can work 20 hours per week. And during your holiday period, you can work full-time. And the moment you submit your dissertation, you can work full-time in the UK. What about Australia?
So, Sarika, Australia, earlier there was an option for till 30th of June, students were allowed to work full time. But now the policy has changed. So now they're allowed to work 48 hours every fortnight. And during the college holidays, school holidays, they're allowed to work full time.
Let's move to the next one, which is about tax, because people want to know how much money will be deducted, versus how much will be take away home. So starting with the UK, so the average tax bracket in the UK falls between 20 to 40%. And you don't pay any tax if your salary is from 0 to 12.57% in the UK. However, after that, your salary bracket, it increases from 20% to 40%, and above 150K, it will be 45%. So for people who want to know more detail about the UK tax system, I already have a dedicated video on my channel, so you can watch that. What about Australia?
So, Sarika, for Australia, up to the like wage threshold of $18,200, you don't pay any taxes. But after that, $18,201 to $45,000, you pay around 19% taxes. So most of the students will fall into this bracket. And then moving forward, the tax bracket goes up from $45,000 to $120,000. It's 32.5%, and then $120,000 to $180,000. It's 37%. And above that is 45%, same as UK.
Okay, moving to the next one, which is about sponsoring parents for PR. So in the UK, you cannot sponsor your parents, irrespective of whether you are on student visa, work visa, or you are a permanent residency. The only point is that you can invite your parents on tourist visa and your family visitor visa, but that doesn't allow them to stay forever in the UK. What about Australia?
Australia is again a winner here, Sarika, because in Australia, when you are a student, you cannot sponsor your parents, but definitely your parents can come and visit. But once you are a permanent resident of Australia, you can sponsor your parents for the permanent category, permanent resident visa. And there are two options. One is contributory and one is non-contributory. So contributory, parents can deposit some amount of money with the government, and they can be prioritized for the permanent residency policy, and they can get the PR of Australia.
So definitely Australia is the winner. So guys, if you want to take your parents along with you, Australia should be the country you should be targeting rather than UK. Okay, now moving to the next parameter, which is about distance from India to UK versus Australia. So anyone who's taking a direct flight from India to UK, generally your average flight is 8 to 9 hours. What about Australia?
Australia is not too bad. It's around 12 to 13 hours of direct flights available from major cities to major cities of India.
Okay, moving to my 11th parameter, which is about can student bring your family, which is your dependent, with you on student visa. So there's a bad news for UK people. So from Jan 2024, you cannot bring your dependent if you're doing a master's course. However, if you are doing your research-based course like PhD, you can bring your dependent. And also earlier, you were not allowed to bring your dependent for bachelor. So now no bachelors or master students can bring dependent. However, when you bring your dependent on PhD, they can work full-time because they have an open work permit. What about Australia?
So Sarika, Australia is a clear winner in this area as well, because Australia does allow a subsequent entrant visa for the dependents like spouse and dependent children to come and join the student in the country during their studies, and the spouse are allowed to work full-time.
So guys, I hope you're making your note, and I don't know if we should continue further because I see Australia is already winning in so many parameters. But let me continue with the next point as well, Victor. Students generally ask me about driving license. Yeah, can they use their India's driving license to drive, whether in UK or Australia? So with your Indian driving license in the UK, you can drive for 1 year, and after that, you will have to apply for the UK's driving license. What about Australia?
It's the same policy in Australia as well. But in Australia, one thing is there, every state, every province, they have their own licensing. So if they are coming to Melbourne, then they have to get the Victorian license. If they are going to go and drive in Sydney, they have to get the New South Wales license. So it just depends. State-wise, they get the license.
Not in the UK. You just have one driving license, which you can drive whether you go to east, west, north, or south. Moving to the next one. Now, what is the status of children born in a country regardless of your parents' status? For example, if your children is born in the UK, whether you are on a student visa or whether you are on a work permit, you don't get a permanent residency, which is the British passport. You get the British passport only if your parent got ILR, which is PR, or if they are a British passport holder. What about Australia?
It's very similar in Australia as well, Sarika. So if your parents are student, you get a visitor visa or a student visa.
Okay.
And if your parents are permanent resident or citizens, then you get the Australian citizenship at birth.
Now, moving to my second last parameter, which is about schooling for children. So if you're bringing your children along with you, you don't need to worry for the initial grade 12 because your studies will be free. And only when you go to universities, you'll have to pay the university fees. What about Australia?
Australia is a bit different, Sarika, in this sense, because I've lived in Australia, so I will share my practical experience. Australia, not every state is the same. So some states, they do offer free education to the children of students, and some states, they do not. But in Australia, it's quite different because a lot of private schooling culture is there, and private schools are really good schools, and they offer education at a very, very competitive price. So starting at around, say, $6,000, $7,000 per annum. So a lot of Indians, they try to, or they tend to put their children into the private schools for their education.
So moving to the last parameter, which is about the healthcare, which is important for anyone, irrespective of whether they come on a student visa or a work permit. So in the UK, when you come as a student, during your student visa application, you pay something called as healthcare surcharge, which means you're paying the taxes and the amount to use the NHS, which is the National Health Service of the UK. And hence your services are free after that. What about Australia?
Sarika, generally for Australia, there is a policy called OSHC, Overseas Student Health Cover. It's like a mandatory insurance, which has to be a part of your visa application. So every student has to maintain a mandatory insurance for Australia.
Thank you, Victor. So those were the 15 parameters which I have brought to compare between UK and Australia. To be honest, I already know who is the winner, and I think my audience also know who is the winner. However, guys, you have to let me know in the comment section whether you are targeting Australia or UK and why are you choosing that